Well, he's playing both sides, which politicians are known to do. Anybody that's reviewed the plan knows much of it comes out of the MAGA movement, which was created by President Trump. But let us not forget that President Trump, former President Trump, for many years was a Democrat and has embraced both sides of policy arguments in certain areas. If you take the Dobbs decision, for example, he's now talking about not supporting a national ban on abortion and allowing it to remain in the states. I'm just giving that as an example. So I think the president will weave, the former president, excuse me, will weave back and forth around Project 2025 in order to strengthen his base, but possibly capture those in the battleground or swing states who may lean right of center on certain issues covered by Project 2025.
Governor, let's bring you in on this. What is your take on this?
Well, I think that Vice President Harris right now has a little bit of a runway to see what's going on within the battleground states, particularly, and mount an effective offense against not only the policies that are being brought forth by Project 2025, but also some of the character implications that have been denoted. But I do agree with Timothy. There is a play to get towards the center, and I think that Vice President Harris has an opportunity and a choice, albeit a short runway, to see if her running mate can sort of galvanize that center vote.
Let's move to the potential running mates for Kamala Harris right now. I want to bring up on the screen, we have some of her purported options right now. We're apparently days away from finding out who this might be. Ricardo, we'll stay with you on this. Who is standing out to you the most? Who do you think brings the most to this ticket?
It's a very interesting question. And again, I will reiterate, I think the vice president has a runway, albeit a short one, to see how her presidency and how her candidacy is developing. And based on that, she can make a decision. For example, to me, the front runner right now is Senator Mark Kelly. I think he brings a strength to a battleground state that she is currently down in the polls. He has a message and historically has been more towards the center that could be appealing when you sort of compare the race right now and you see that both sides are either more conservative or more liberal. There's a space in between. But if it comes down, the other alternative is that if it comes down to a state or two, say Pennsylvania, for example, then the choice might go to somebody like Governor Shapiro, a very popular governor that can swing that state, and that might be the decider in the election.
Yeah. Timothy, what do you think? Is there a person on this list you think would make Republicans the most nervous come November?
I'm also a fan of Mark Kelly in that he is on a border state. He's been critical of President Biden's or the Biden-Harris border policies. His wife, as we know, is an unfortunate victim of gun violence. But I also think Gretchen Whitmer and her ability to deliver Michigan, a battleground state. By the way, all the candidates or all of the nominees are in potentially battleground states. But I think Michigan is particularly critical because of the situation in Gaza and Israel, which has turned off many traditional Democratic voters. I think having a Gretchen Whitmer on the ticket can have those voters look at the Harris policies towards Gaza and Israel versus the Trump's policies. And that could be a dividing line to benefit Democrats in that regard.
Okay, I appreciate that. Ricardo, I want to make sure we leave time to talk about the Hispanic vote here, because we're looking at a recent New York Times Siena College poll, seeing Harris now leading Trump by 19 points among Hispanic voters. And then when you look in June, the same poll found that Biden was leading that group by just a single point. What is fueling this shift?
Well, first of all, if we look historically, the Hispanic vote, even though it's not a monolith, it is very diverse. It tended in aggregate to go to the Democrats. So I take it with a grain of salt. It's good news in that, you're now separate.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.